Okay. So welcome everyone. We're very excited about the Tell Me More Diverse Voices. This is the first of a series of webinars that we will be doing for Broad Art. And we're very excited to have Simon & Schuster and Penguin Random House as sponsors. Today, we have three authors, three amazing women that will be talking about their books. The two of them it's their first book. One has published before, and she has 2 starred reviews from Booklist. We have 2 titles that are personal memoirs, and we have one that is a fiction thriller. Carol Levers is going to be moderating, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Carol. We're very excited to have her with us. Carol is from the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library. She was born in Johannesburg, South Africa. She moved to the United States in 1989. She lived in the apartheid regime, and when she came to the United States, within about 10 years, she and her family were able to apply for their national citizenship. So in 1993, was it? I'm sorry, 1999, Carol actually was nationalized. The exciting thing is that when Carol came to the United States, she actually started working in a library, and that was her first taste of what the American public libraries were like. She transferred, she went to university. She went to she went to a community college, then she transferred to a 4-year college, received her BA in Human Resources, and then she received her Master of Library Science from Euphoria University in 2001. She's done quite a lot of volunteer work. She's pretty amazing, all the different things she's done. She served 2 terms as president of the Kansas City, Kansas Women's Chamber. She was a Kansas City Area Chamber Board for that same duration of 2 years. She worked 17 years in the Kansas City, Kansas Community College Endowment Board and the organization's foundation. She's the chair of the United Way of the Wyandotte Board of Directors. Currently, she's a trustee in the United of Greater Kansas City. She represented Wyandotte County in the Northeast Kansas City system, as well as the executive board. She's contributed in writing a grant for the university, for Euphoria University for diversity, which match recruitment and retention strategies. The foundation received $858,000 to recruit, train, and retain local minority library staff and students for library services in Kansas, Colorado, and Oregon. 42 students have actually gone through the program and graduated. And she received an I Love My Library Award from the Carnegie, hosted by the Carnegie Corporation. It was handed out in New York. That's a big deal, very exciting. Everything's a big deal, but this is very exciting on the library side. She is the first woman and person of color to become the director of libraries for Kansas City and Kansas City Public Library. So that also is very exciting. A lot of work, I'm sure, went into that. She manages 5 public libraries, a fleet of 3 mobile libraries, and 40 school libraries. She reports to the Unified School District number 50 for the school board, and she's also reports to the Wyandotte County Library Board. Very impressive and very exciting to have you with us, Carol. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and good luck to the authors.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction, Anita, and for inviting me to be the moderator. It is indeed an honor to be chatting with these incredible authors this afternoon. Thank you for everyone in the audience for taking time from your busy schedules to learn with us this afternoon. I'm going to start with our first author, and it's Amanda Jayatissa. Amanda grew up in Sri Lanka. She completed her undergrad at Mills College in California and lived in the UK before moving back to her sunny little island. She works as a corporate trainer, owns a chain of cookie stores, and is a proud dog mom to her 2 spoiled huskies. Oh. Welcome, Amanda. So glad that you're with us. Oh, first of all, sorry. Did you want to say something?
Oh, no, go on. Sorry.
No, that's fine. First of all, when I read the book of Amanda and I looked at her picture, the cover, I read her bio and I'm like, wow, that is Amanda on that cover. And that was my first question. I said, is that you on the cover? And Amanda said, no, it's just coincidental. It's not the first time somebody asked her that, but I thought it was. It's a beautiful cover. I have never read a book like this before, to be honest. It was spellbinding. It just, and I just enjoyed the book. The protagonist, Paloma, thought her perfect life would begin once she was adopted and made it to America. But she's about to find out that no matter how far you run, your past always catches up with you. And that's just what I'm going to share. It's for everyone to read the book. It is incredible and I enjoyed it. So what is the inspiration of your story?
Wow. So I was actually, I was working on a different book at the time, and it's just something wasn't working, right? I had this idea for, it was still a suspense mystery, but it's just something wasn't working out. And then, funnily enough, I had this very unfortunate encounter at my bank with a customer service representative at my bank. And you might laugh because that's sort of the intro to the book, where I had this very sort of irritating encounter. And I did what I think most of us would do, where I had these very uncharitable sort of thoughts in my mind. And I was really, really angry, but I didn't say anything. And I kept this very, very nice, like smile on my face. And then I left and I did what I think a lot of writers would do. I found my favorite coffee shop and ordered like a big cup of coffee. And after I was, adequately caffeinated, I took out my notebook and a piece of paper and I started really just bashing on this customer service representative, right? I was writing these horrible, like mean girl thoughts. I was just writing it all down. And after a while, I realized like, hey, I'm having just such a good time, right? I'm having so much fun. So that's where sort of Paloma was born. And I thought like something clicked. I was like, okay, this is the missing piece, right? This is what wasn't working earlier that just sort of seems to work. And I took the previous plot that I was working on and I restructured it sort of to fit this character. And that's where sort of the threads of My Sweet Girl started coming together.
So what is the most difficult part of your artistic process?
That's a tough question. I really love writing. So I don't think anything there, I mean, obviously like most writers, I think you run into certain roadblocks and you run into certain struggles. With My Sweet Girl, one of the things that I tried to focus on a lot is the story is told in two parts. So there's this, what's set in the present is this mean girl voice, adult Paloma, but the parts that happened in the past was narrated by a 12-year-old Paloma. And I wanted to really make sure that I got that 12-year-old's voice right, because for me that had to sound really authentic. And it's been a while since, I was in that kind of age bracket. So how I overcame that, and it's really funny, is that I pulled out all my diaries and journals that I kept when I was that age. And I read that, and a lot of it was me complaining about my brother. It's like, he's such a pain. He bugged me again today. But I read that and it really helped me get into this voice. So that was sort of the struggle I had and how I overcame it.
Right. Do you have any plans for your next book?
My next book has been written more or less. It's very far along in the editing process. I think like on my second round of major edits with my editor, and this is just the refining. So yeah, it's I don't know how much about that I am allowed to really talk about at this stage, but I am very excited for it. I will say that it takes place in Sri Lanka. And it surrounds a Sri Lankan wedding, which, if you don't know much about Sri Lanka and Sri Lankan weddings, they are very, very over the top. And it's, again, a mystery and suspense that sort of takes place surrounding a wedding.
Fantastic. all I wanted to know was just that whether you had a new, some more plans for a new book. So that's a good thing.
Yes, I mean, yeah, that and like many more afterwards, right? I got a notebook full of ideas just ready to go.
Fantastic. How do you select the names of your characters?
It's very funny. With Paloma, I felt like she would be Paloma. There was really not much research done beyond that. In the past, I've felt that where I've gone on to, you know, those baby name generator websites and things like that, and I've tried to look up names, which is fine, but I've always found that with my characters, even with my second book, any character that's memorable to me kind of comes out fully formed with that name that kind of reflects their personality. It's a package deal. And at some point, someone asked me, they're like, Paloma isn't a typical Sri Lankan name. You might come across a few women named Paloma, but it isn't a particularly like a Sinhala or Tamil name. So I got asked very early on with one of the first reads, where one of my friends asked me, it's like, hey, you know, do you want to change the name, maybe something a little bit more Sri Lankan? And I was like, no, it just seemed unfathomable to me. Paloma is Paloma. She came out the way she did, and I guess we're all stuck with her.
Fantastic. We'll go to our next author, and once we go through, we'll come again and hear if there's any questions from the audience, okay?
Great, thank you.
And I want to share with you guys, everyone out there, that Amanda is in Sri Lanka, and that is 10.5 hours ahead of us. So we are really appreciative of her doing this. So within another 15 minutes or so, she will be in August 5th already. It'll be midnight after. So thank you for sharing that. I mean, I know I'm international, so I know when I have to deal with family, what time we need to speak and, and not wake them up in the middle of the night and vice versa. But yes, thanks, Amanda, for taking the time. So the next author we have with us is Dawn Turner. Dawn is an award-winning journalist and novelist. She's a former columnist and reporter for the Chicago Tribune. Ms. Turner spent a decade and a half writing about politics, race, and class in Chicago and beyond, as well as telling the individual stories of people who fly below the radar. Author of Only Twice, I've Wished for Heaven, and An 8th of August. Wonderful titles. First of all, I must say it's an inspiring memoir. And this is about 3 Black girls from the storied Bronzeville section of Chicago that offers a penetrating exploration of race. It is beautiful, but also tragic. And there's a lot of things that I, kind of see myself with family and stuff. It was just a wonderful read. So my question to you, and I've got my pages kind of messed up here.
That's okay.
Oh no, they print it on the other side. That's why. And also I want to share that it was an opportunity of friendship, sisterhood, and the power forces at work that allowed some to flourish and others to falter. When did you know you wanted to write this book?
Well, I'm going to get into that, but if you can give me a few minutes to talk a little bit, give you a bunch of background. Is that okay?
Certainly.
Okay, perfect. First of all, I want to say that I am so honored to be here today. And I also want to say that I have a confession. When I was a kid, I was the one who hung out in libraries, but not because I loved books early on. I did so because my mother told my sister and me that if we were reading, we didn't have to do chores. Ooh. So we were little pragmatists and we read all the time. My neighborhood library was the King branch of the Chicago Public Library System. And a woman named Mrs. Brady, the librarian, gave me tons and tons of books. We had books at home, but I loved the ones that she squirreled away just for me. Early on, my favorite was the Pippi Longstocking series, and Pippi was an orphaned white girl who had little in common with me, but I admired how bold she was, and her adventures seemed epic to me at the time. So as I said, I didn't love books in the beginning, but eventually I did come to love them and their ability to change my perspective and transform my life.
How smart your mother was. That was a wonderful.
Yes. so that's my confession. So now let me tell you a little bit about Three Girls from Bronzeville.
Okay.
It's the story of three girls who start out in virtually the same place and take dramatically different paths. One of us will die, one of us will go to prison, and the last of us, me, will tell our story. And at the heart of the story is a question that I've been wrestling with for decades now. When did we lose them? Them being my sister Kim and my best friend Deborah. I've searched for answers in my journalism and my novels, but now with this memoir, I tackle it head on. Deborah, Kim, and I were coming of age in the afterglow of the civil rights movement. It was a moment when our parents believed our country would finally be amenable to giving us the opportunities it had denied generations of Blacks. Our parents would soon be disabused of this line of thinking, but in that moment, they set their sights on a future for us, their daughters, that was to be incredibly robust. We would go to college, we would be rewarded with great jobs, we would become homeowners, and by doing so, partake of what is foundational or the cornerstone of the American dream. To set the stage for us, our families in the late 1960s had just moved into a brand new apartment complex that was conceived by a world-renowned Black dermatologist named Dr. Theodore K. Wallace. Another one of the principal developers was John H. Johnson, the Black publisher of the Ebony and Jet magazines. Our development was in a community, not officially, but affectionately called Bronzeville. It had been the cradle of Chicago's Great Migration and home to some of the country's most esteemed Black folks. Gwendolyn Brooks, the first Black person to win the Pulitzer Prize, lived in Bronzeville. So did Louis Armstrong, the famed trumpeter, as did Dr. Daniel Hill Williams, the heart surgeon, a Black man who performed the first successful heart surgery. Deborah, Kim, and I were surrounded by a legacy of innovation and excellence in the arts and entrepreneurship and the sciences and on and on. Kim, my sister, was born in 1968. I was 3 years old, and from the start, when my parents brought her home, she was a mystery to me. Headstrong, stubborn, willful, fearless. My mother would say, that girl's not afraid of anything, and that scares me. Whenever Kim got punished, she would lie on her bed, staring contentedly at the ceiling. It was as if she delighted in the punishment. I'd stand a few feet away from her, and I would always look at her face, which was always a kaleidoscope of expressions. Years later, it would be from that vantage point that I would see her at only 24, stretched out on a gurney in a hospital emergency room, pale and expressionless, beautiful and dead. She was the love of my life. The other love of my life was my best friend, Deborah. We became best friends in the 3rd grade. Deborah was already prom queen pretty, and like Kim, trafficked in trouble. However opposite we were, our friendship seemed faded when we learned that we had so much in common. We both had one sibling, a sister. Mine was younger and hers was older. Not only did we live in the same 24-story tower, but her apartment and her bedroom were directly above mine. And kind of as a parenthetical, Deborah's last name is Trice. And years later, I would marry a man completely unrelated to her, whose last name is Trice. But when we were young, the other thing we shared was a love of Pippi Longstocking, that children's book character I mentioned earlier. Pippi had a Thing Finders Club where she searched for broken treasures. And in the spirit of Pippi, we collected broken items for our Thing Finders Club. And we roamed Bronzeville searching for discarded things that we believed could be made new and whole again. As kids, we had so many dreams about our friendship and our future successes. But our lives, as I said before, took shockingly different turns. Years later, I was working at the Chicago Tribune when I got a call that I will never forget. Deborah was in jail for killing a man. She would spend more than 2 decades of her life in prison. So over the years, when people have asked me how my sister died, I've repeated what the emergency room doctor said. Kim had a heart attack, but that's not the entire story. When people have asked me how Deborah landed in prison, the Cliff Notes version sounds like a familiar tale about inner city Blacks and poverty and drugs, but that's not the entire story either. This book is the full story. It's one that I was afraid and ashamed to tell until now. Sometimes even for the most devout thing finders, there are things we simply don't want to know or to find until we do. One last thing. In 2007, when Deborah graduated from college while in prison, I wrote a column in the Chicago Tribune about her accomplishment. I'd written about her before in the Tribune, but those stories didn't generate this tsunami of emails and letters from around the world as that 2007 story did. It occurred to me that the other stories were a cautionary tale, the type of story that you share with some young person and say, don't do this or don't you dare take that road. But the graduation story was different. And that's because it was about transformation and redemption and about second chances. Here's a photo now of Deborah in 2019. You see it. And that was a few days after I picked her up from prison. Now, 2 years later, she's still thriving. To be clear, and this is something that's very, very important to me, Three Girls from Bronzeville is not a story about how perfect I was and how imperfect my sister and best friend were. Instead, I think of both Kim and Deborah and know there, but for the grace of God, go on. We all make mistakes. We all make good and bad choices. Life can change in an instant, and sometimes we avoid peril, not because of any series of things we've done perfectly, but because of a grace far bigger than our own steps and missteps. Thank you so very much for your time.
Okay, you're so welcome. So some of the questions that I wanted to pose is really the things that you answered. But there's one question. What is the most difficult part of your artistic process?
Oh my God, I think everything is difficult about it. From the conceiving the idea to starting to write. When I look at the blank page, my stomach seizes because it's just writing to me is still such a daunting undertaking. I love it so much. As I said, I was a very young reader, not always reading for the right reasons, but just very much loved reading, and kind of knitted with that is a love of writing sometimes. And that was very much the case for me. And I think I love it so much that I really want to get it right. And that is just always a big challenge.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to introduce to you our third author and of the beautiful country, and her name is Tian Ju Lee Wong. So Tian, there's one a piece of thing that really caught my eye, and it's on page 110 in your book. And I just had to smile. And I'm going to read it to the audience. I felt so at home at the library that I took it upon myself to keep it organized. I didn't like that the spines of all the picture books were lined up along the edges of the shelves. It was too precarious. Their faces jutted out instead of sitting in safety toward the back. I also didn't like that they were not organized by height. They looked messy and sloppy. Tall ones next to short ones, the top of some books sticking out over the tops of others next to them. So I developed a daily habit of organizing the shelves. placing the larger hardbound versions of Goodnight Moon before the smaller paperbacked Berenstain Bears books. I had to smile and laugh when I read that, because I was wondering who the elves were that were rearranging our libraries all these years, and you were one of them. And but now I got the answer of why it happened, because you couldn't understand why those books were the way they were. And it's only in your later years, like myself, I'm just trying to show my age, I guess, that you learn. And there were things that you did different, and you were wondering now why you would have done what you could have done better to make life a little bit easier for a child or somebody like you. But it was fantastic just to read that, and I had to go back and find that portion of that. So it is a beautiful memoir again that you've written, and you took me through that as a young child, as if you took my hand and I moved through the rooms with you, and wherever you went, that's where I was and could see it through your eyes. It's an incandescent memoir from an astonishing, like they said, a new talent. Beautiful country puts readers in the shoes of an undocumented child living in poverty in the richest country in the world. And I think many people who've come to this country with hopes and for a better life will appreciate what you've written. I would say that myself, because I brought two kids, a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, when I had to leave South Africa because we had to apply for political asylum when we came here. And I'm now wondering how my daughter, 6 years old, was seeing things through your eyes. And I'm like, oh, my heart breaks, because you couldn't tell your parents, and I'm sure she couldn't tell me. But what your parents did was kind of do the best to be under the radar, but also to protect you and protect the kids. So it brings up a lot of memories, and I really do appreciate. I really did appreciate your book, and it was fantastically written. So when did you start writing?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Chen Julie here. I just wanted to greet everyone. I'm just so thrilled to be with you all today. And I especially want to thank Rodart, Elenita, and Carol for organizing this wonderful event and coming up with these brilliant questions. It's also a true honor to be here alongside Amanda and Don, and I'm so thrilled to hear their stories as well. As Carol mentioned, I'm thrilled to be participating in an event with librarians. That's where I taught myself English at the age of 7 in the Chinatown Public Library branch, Chatham Square. And as Carol read, it was natural for me to start working at libraries. So as early as I could in high school, I got a job at a library, and I was actually able to organize books in the way that they were supposed to be organized. And I loved repairing books, fixing the hardbacks, gluing the pages back together. I don't know, there was just something really therapeutic about restoring these stories that had saved me in a time where I felt really lonely. So Carol, you asked when I started writing, and I assume you mean this book or generally?
Generally.
Generally, I had always been writing. I loved to write. My father was an English professor in China, and I saw how books inspired a sense of idealism in him and his belief for a better country, a belief for a country where you can criticize the government, where we were not allowed to do in China. And I started writing, keeping a daily diary when I moved here to New York. And I was really inspired by Harriet the Spy. I remember coming upon that book in the library, and she's documenting all these clues. And I was like, I'm sure I can come upon a mystery somehow one day. I'm going to start writing these mundane little details of what my classmate ate for an ice cream after school, because I was very envious that she could afford the ice cream, and one day it'll lead to me cracking some huge mystery. That never happened, but those diaries and crazy little anecdotes and notes did really help me reconstruct my memories and revisit a lot of memories that were painful and that I had believed to be shameful for most of my life. So with this book in particular, I did not start even thinking about writing it until the 2016 election. That was 4 months after I became a naturalized citizen. And that in turn was 22 years after I first stepped foot in this country. And when I had become a naturalized citizen, President Obama on a video screen in the courthouse called me a fellow American. And I realized that it was the very first time I had been acknowledged as an American, even though I had become American so many years ago. And that those words coming from the President of the United States unlocked something in me. So going into the November 2016 election with much heated debate on undocumented immigrants and in a very dehumanizing manner, I realized for the first time that I was coming from a position of privilege and that I had a newfound responsibility to share this story. But of course, I had not thought about these years, nor did my parents and I talk about them for very long because we believed that we had been wrong and illegal and shameful. So it was a long time coming from there.
Fantastic. Well, obviously you answered the other question is also, is there a specific message you want to share?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and I did not think of this book as sending a message because, I mean, I grew up on books. I love books for as long as I remember, and the best books are ones that give you an experience and put you on a journey in which you are essentially wearing someone else's shoes, wearing their skin, and going about the world. And those experiences in great works of literature that I myself read have changed me because I was able to view the world from a different experience. So I think of this book as really a voyage back into childhood. Yes, the childhood of an undocumented person, but a childhood that is nevertheless universal. There are joys and little pranks that I childishly played on others. There are things, I think, to our humanity and to the experience of being a child and learning about the world for the very first time that is universal, regardless of whether you're white or Black, documented or undocumented, American or Chinese.
So what is the most difficult part of your artistic process?
For this book, two pieces. One is that I was working 60 to 80 hours a week at my national law firm as a commercial litigator while writing this book. So I had no time. At one point, I was also planning my wedding and got to a point where I was sleeping about 3 hours a night. And I was just like, something has to give because I was up for partner and I love the law. I love practicing law. It's really part of what I was meant to do. But the other part of what I was meant to do was to write. So I stopped working on the book for about 1.5 years while focusing on all of that. But I wrote all of the first draft on my iPhone on my subway commute to work. I'm sorry, there's some construction going on all of a sudden. Apologies for that. So the entire book was on my iPhone notes, and I didn't actually put it together on a computer until I thought I was done, and I populated the notes on my MacBook and realized that I had written 300 pages somehow. Yeah. So, and how that came to be was that, I haven't, as I said, thought about these memories, processed those memories until 2016 when I went into therapy and tried to unravel my life and understand what had happened. And a big part of being able to tell this story the way it has come out was allowing my inner child to speak and following her along, allowing her to guide me to the points that where she was hurt the most, or maybe she didn't want to look at, and both be there through a childhood lens, but also have my adult self there, reliving, working in the sweatshop and snipping thread off clothing for 1 cent a piece, or going to the sushi processing plant and standing in freezing water for 12 hours at a time with my mother at my side. The happy memories were easier for me to process, so I started with those. And on the subway, my rule was just kind of stream of consciousness, no deleting, just get it out all down on the Notes app and you'll edit later. So first I opened with, discovering Charlotte's Web for the first time, eating pizza for the first time and not knowing what the cheese was. And then eventually going to the more difficult memories that allowed me to, crack open into those childhood wounds that I think, even though they are very specific details, in particular to me, I think all of us carry them and they become this indelible force on who we are as adults.
Correct. That's wonderfully written. My questions to the authors have come to an end. So I would open it up to the audience. If Elenita, if you received some questions that we could pose to the authors and they can answer those.
Yes, I have a couple questions and comments. First, Katie Stover seems to be typing away. She wants to let people know that the Three Girls from Bronzeville is a perfect book for book groups and who like memoirs, which I agree. She's asking about how different did Chin find writing her memoir from writing legal documents? And then also she wrote, wow, that's amazing, writing on an iPhone in the subway. So I'm just going to read the next question and then you guys can answer. And who are some of your favorite authors, titles, and genres? So, and we want to have let Amanda also have a chance to answer some of these, but you guys go ahead.
Sure. And just to be clear, I go by Qian Julie. I know it's
I'm sorry.
But it's no worries. It's not your fault. It's just confusing. It's funny because people think being a lawyer and being an author are very different things, but they're very similar. The best lawyers are professional storytellers. But there is a time and place for your artistic voice. And what I found in writing, I missed in writing briefs, was that artistic voice. I had freedom to be creative, legally speaking, with legal strategy, how I presented the story of the case, but I can't quite, put my childhood voice in a book or take on a metaphor and carry it through and believe that the judge and jury will be following me along that. So in writing the story, I felt a lot more freedom. I felt very liberated to play with the art of literature in a way that in legal documents I could not, although I did try to get away with in the courtroom, which was more fun.
In terms of my favorite writers, my parents divorced when I was about 6, and my mother remarried when I was 12. And my stepfather worked as a security guard in the main public library downtown Chicago, and he brought home books and books. And so my mother wanted to make sure that we read the poets. Gwendolyn Brooks was huge. The way that she could, just the economy of words and how she was able to turn a phrase and just to even pitch the aperture just a little differently so that you could see the world through her eyes in such a poetic way. That was beautiful. But at the same time, I fell in love with James Baldwin. His birthday was, I believe, a couple of days ago. And I loved the way that he thought and the way that he looked at race in this country. And I actually happened to be overseas in France and got a chance to see the house that he lived in before it was torn down. But I would say that the combination of having the writing that is purposeful and that tells a story, that the type of writing and that it's political that James Baldwin did, but a mixture of that with the poetry and the fun that we could use and have with metaphors and language. So those two authors, there are many others, but those two writers kind of epitomize that for me.
Amanda?
Yes, so it's very interesting because growing up in Sri Lanka, I think like the types of books that you're exposed to would vary a little bit. So I grew up reading a lot of Enid Blyton, actually, just like a lot of Famous Five and Secret Seven. So I'm a murder mystery, not murder mystery at that stage, but just like a mystery sort of girl, right? That was what excited me and kind of got me going. But I also, as I got a little older, started branching out. I I was very, very lucky that I had a mother who would let me read absolutely anything. That means I was allowed to read like Stephen King when I was 12 or 13, like a very very wild age. The only thing I wasn't allowed to read, interestingly enough, was Archie comics, because my mom would say, like, my mom, like the feminist back in the day, we used to be like, there's no one has got any time to read a story about two girls fighting over a boy. So that was like the only thing that was off limits for me. But that's sort of grown. So I have this, like from a young age, I would watch a lot of horror movies. I think the benefits of having like older cousins is that I watched like my first horror movie when I was 5 or 6. I love ghost stories. I love sort of like a lot of suspense, especially as I've gotten older, and as psychological suspense and thrillers have really taken a center stage. Gillian Flynn is like, oh, Jessica Knoll, like I love these authors. I love books in the genre, and I love sort of this idea of ghost stories and horror elements so much that some of it even managed to sneak their way into my own writing. So Mohini, which is, she's this urban legend here in Sri Lanka. It's this woman who, she sort of walks in this ghost of a woman who walks in the street in the night, and she stops lonely travelers, and there are numerous stories about her. We've all whispered these stories around candles when we were children, and I think I even dressed up as her once when I was about 12 to scare my cousins. So elements like that obviously have played a huge part in shaping essentially what I like to read, and then subsequently what I like to write as well. So yeah.
And growing up, I, as a kid, really wanted to understand what it was like to be a normal American kid in the suburbs, because I lived in Brooklyn, spent most of my time in Chinatown, and didn't assume that New York City was the same as Ohio and Nevada and everywhere. So I read a lot of Sweet Valley High and Babysitter's Club, because I didn't know that, Connecticut, which was so close to me, had a lot more trees and grass than what I saw. And then as I got older, I had an extended and serious love affair with Victorian and romantic literature. I discovered Middlemarch by George Eliot at age 13 or 14, probably too early for me to understand what it was saying, but I've reread it 5 times, love Jane Eyre. I consider, Dorothea and Jane Eyre my best friends, even though they don't actually exist. But the book that really inspired me in terms of writing this book is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings.
Oh, yeah.
The way that she recounts her childhood through this lyrical and vivid voice is just magical. It's a talent of a new order. And there was so many times when I wondered where the people of color were in our literature, because I was an English lit major and we just kept reading about white people. And when I came upon Maya Angelou's works, I was like, oh, here you are. My spirit guide into this world. So really, I think all of us are standing on the shoulders of giants who came before us and broke a lot of barriers.
Okay.
And I think it's so interesting that you're so much younger than me. And that's saying, I mean, it made sense that when I was coming up, there were so few people who looked like me who populated books. But it's a little disheartening to hear that you were also struggling to find those people. And Gwendolyn Brooks really was, and it was so important for me to read her book, in part because of her words, but also because of place. She grew up not far from me, and we lived in the same community. And to be able to amplify place as well as personhood, and to understand where people are coming from and the community, and the impacts, whether it was in our communities, whether it was racism, redlining, all of those things that really tore at the fabric of the community and challenged it in so many ways. And so it's nice to be able to hear from people who have those diverse perspectives, and also that they are trying to push against the stereotypes so that we can have a deeper understanding of what is going on, and whether it's a foreign community, an immigrant community, an African American or a Latinx community, or just, I mean, something that has too often been considered the other.
Yeah. Should we go on with more, or should we just carry on? Alanita? Oh, we can't hear you.
You know,
Sorry.
do you want to go ahead and talk about what you're doing in the libraries with diversity and how you work with authors like we have on the panel today? And
Certainly. Yeah. As Elenita was explaining, I'm the director of libraries in Kansas City, Kansas. I oversee 5 public libraries, 3 mobile libraries, and I also, this is a very rare thing for us in Kansas City, that we are governed by a school board. So I run or manage the 43 schools as well. So I have to wear different hats because public library and school libraries are, you know, there's a dichotomy there, and people just don't understand. They want to do everything to themselves. Public schools, they are under parental guidance, whereas public, you can read whatever you want to read, and you know, in the public, and I cannot tell you what to read and what not to read. So I always have to be the one to tell the school, no, you can't do this. Okay, you know, just leave the public alone. Nevertheless, it's difficult, but it's fun. I love doing what I'm doing. As she explained, I came to the United States in 89. We had to leave the country because of political asylum. We searched, and when we got here, I couldn't work because I didn't have a working permit. I only gave my husband one. So it was difficult for me to get a job. And I, in turn, after some time without a job, I went to clean houses and wash windows, and because you have to do what you have to do to survive. And I had 2 little kids, 3-year-old and 6-year-old, that we needed to put through school. So I just walked to the library one day because I was so frustrated, and then just fell in love with all the books that were banned in South Africa, because of when you protagonists, then if you are a person of color, it was banned because they didn't want to show what you can become. Mm-hmm. And they don't understand. Kids read and they want to see somebody that looks like them, talks like them, thinks like them, as well as the dominant society. And I, kind of immersed myself and read all the banned books that were banned in South Africa, because I wanted to know, why are these books banned? Why were they banned for me? So that was my love for coming to the library. And then I found out, I could volunteer. I didn't know what the word volunteer meant. But in the meantime, I volunteered, and I volunteered at the library for about 2.5 years until I got a working permit. In the meantime, I still had to do odd jobs and stuff like that. But I knew when I looked at everybody at the library, I said, I cannot just be stagnant the way so that's when I started going back and going to college and, trying to get my degree. And in the meantime, I worked myself up. I became the shelver and the young adult supervisor, and then circulation supervisor. And then I became the, reach out as a outreach librarian, and then manage a library on my own. And then, this didn't happen overnight, it's like 5 years, increments, etc., until I became the director of libraries. It's a dream for me from South Africa, to start off as a volunteer and become the director of library. It's a dream come true, and I'm just, so excited. But then I found out that, again, within the libraries, it's just the dominant society that work in the libraries. It is just the same old people, and people started what's the word I'm using, gravitating towards me to ask me questions, and especially people of the Hispanic people. and spoke in Spanish because they assumed that I was Spanish. I looked like almost like them, and I couldn't understand. And I knew something has to happen. We need to bring people in that understand people and then can answer people's questions. And because if you don't get the service in the libraries, where are you going to get it? Because this is supposed to be the free. So we in Kansas City, Kansas, we serve about 165,000 people. Our schools have 63 different languages, and it's difficult because we need to have interpreters, especially from countries, non-English speaking countries. So, and it flows over into the libraries. So we have to serve these kids. How can I give a kid a book that they can't even understand English? Is there any literature in their language? It's difficult to find literature in in the languages in the world because they don't even have it in their own country. But the vendors and publishers need to know that, as many languages that they can print and expose, share with libraries, it will be very much appreciated. I organize a lot of programs, and of course, bring in authors, diverse authors. I have my selectors. They have to select, from different authors. It's just a must. You just have to do it. I had authors like the late Eric Jerome Dickey, who came out. We brought him out. Sister Soldier came out. Med de la Pena came out. Our latest one just a couple of months ago was Isabel Wilkinson. I am so excited to say that I had her before President Obama had her, so she was one of our great authors. So years ago when I started, I had difficulty many years ago, even to get Spanish literature. I sent some of my librarians to Mexico, to the Guadalajara Book Fair, to get books to bring into the country. One of my librarians had the opportunity to go to Spain for a book fair there. I said, go ahead and get us some books by, just to try and get a different type of books into our collection. It's not so difficult now because we have a lot of vendors that have Spanish books and authors that they can share. But there's a lot of more immigrants coming to this country, not just Spanish, that speak Spanish, that we need to tap into, especially the different Chinese languages. I have a difficulty communicating with people like that. And I just feel that the library is a place, it's a marketplace where everybody is welcome and needs to be able to, even if it's just read a newspaper in their language. It's important that they feel comfortable that there's somewhere that they can come. We organize all kinds of programs, whether it's from Black History Month to LGBTQ Pride Month. I mean, every month we have sometimes twice a month of program. And with that, I try to incorporate diverse authors and books that we do. Now, when I do invite an author to come and speak to us, I usually order about 300 to 500 books, and we have that author just sign it, and we give it out free to our community. We could not have great programming, and people complaining they always have to go to neighboring libraries to go to programming and books. Why can't we have it? Because the money wasn't there, but we fought along the way, and our board saw in it that we needed the funding. So we have the funding now, and we try our best to make sure that our community gets what they're looking for. Instead of just what we think they need, we need to keep our eyes, our ears to the ground and find out what the community wants and serve our community. We have now influx of Burmese people. And of course, there's no literature it's difficult. So we have door hangers that we go and hang on their doors, and it's being created to go to invite the new immigrant and the families with graphics and some Burmese to introduce them to the library, because how else can you say hello, welcome? But we try to make and show them where to come. We had a Hmong art exhibit and film program that we work with KU, and we have interpreters there as well, just to show their art. There's so many programs that we kind of invest in because it's a place where people feel, the library is a place where people feel comfortable. Over this last year, when everything was shut down, and then we were closed for a month, I think it is. And then afterwards, I decided, we're going to open up again, but we're not going to open the library. But I had my staff come in, and we changed our whole, way of doing things. And we created storytelling every day, whether it's Spanish, well, we could only do Spanish and English. But because our parents couldn't handle the kids for 8 hours alone anymore. So we had to step in as libraries to be able to offer them stuff. We made with the diverse programming and books, we created kits that people could come to the library and pick up kits during the day so that they can go home and make it. And there's a certain time when one of the librarians will show them how to do it, and at least they have it to work with them, or they have the how to do it in the kit. And it was, we just had to change things, but it's a matter of serving our community, and that's what we did. And of course, people ask us why, why can't we do this, that, and the other? There's a lot of restrictions as well that we can't do too much, even though, especially with this COVID still hanging over us. But nevertheless, we try our best to serve our community. Understanding people's cultures and experiences, we have to have diverse books. Otherwise, you will, many books are great books, but the selection is utterly lacking in diversity that I feel it is. A good book can help you understand what it's like for people who don't share your race, your religion, your sexual orientation, or your socioeconomic status. I think, and a lot of people would say that diverse books teach empathy. It's imperative to have a diverse collection to support especially the students in our schools, because we have so many different students. And they could find titles that they can read and connect with on some level, while affirming their own cultural identity and hopefully developing important positive insights about others. Reading books that represent different abilities, cultures, beliefs, and skin colors help us change our attitude towards those differences as well. Sometimes we just see ourselves, and when we see somebody else and they don't look like us, that's when all the animosity comes out, because they're not like us, they don't look like us, they don't speak like us, they don't sound like us. But if we've read about them, then we would have known better. Offering a diverse title for a community read, because that is really what we are in for now. We had our last one was Isabel Wilkinson, and our community was really excited to read that book. It allows the reader to both step into the shoes of the protagonist and have a buffer from their reality books that we read. And some of the, the books, people yearn for a different perspective as well, and not just the same or same. So if they hear there's an author coming that look like them or sound like them, that's when they kind of, gravitate towards. There's a lady called Danielle Yadu, or Yadao. She grew up in a multicultural home in Washington State. She's a Filipinx. She's also from the Yakama Nation and German heritage. And she said that she was spoiled by the abundance of different food she grew up eating, instead of just her one-sided family. She has earned a master's in children's literature from Simmons University, currently works at Scholastic and school library marketing. She lives in Brooklyn, New York, with her deaf 15-year-old pup. She gave me things that I really ponder on as 5 things that I would like to share with you. 5 reasons why you should read a diverse book for your next community read. I don't know if you remember the book Windows, Mirrors, and Sliding Glass Door by Rudine Sims Bishop. She actually referred to that book. And she says it mirrors, is number 1, allows you to see yourself represented in a story and explore your identity. She also wrote that literature transforms the human experience and reflects it back to us. And in that reflection, we can see our own lives and experiences as part of the larger human experience. Reading then becomes a means of self-affirmation. Number 2, windows. Windows bring visibility to cultures different from our own. The books that represent a variety of cultures and people help us understand those who are different from us by opening a window into that experience. Number 3 is reading builds community, unity, and inclusivity. Helps us to become a community of engaged, educated, and empathetic members of society. And then creates openings for discussions about what's happening in current events. Choosing the right community read provides an opportunity for discussing current events that kids may have heard about on the news in the classrooms or at home. Kids are like sponges. We need to give them the facts and give them, they will just, take it on. The last one is emphasizes similarities. Kids are kids no matter how different their backgrounds. Books of diversity should not cause discourse among readers. Rather, well-written book reveals that simple truth of the human experience, which allows us to find out we're not so different after all.
Well, thank you, Carol. I think we're out of time, but that was wonderful. We got some wonderful questions. You guys were all really, really great. I have to tell you that we've gotten comments about how great the books are. We have some early readers. One of you have a book that is going to be nominated for Library Reads. It's just very exciting. I think we're going to watch your success as these books sell and we hear more and more about them, and really appreciate you joining us today. And I want to thank Penguin Random House and Simon & Schuster for sponsoring this. Keep an eye open for other webinars. And again, thank you so much. And this will be recorded, so if you want to see it, I'm happy to share the URL with you. Thank you very much.
That will be
Thank you.
great. Thank you.
so much.
Thank you. Whose book is going to be on Goodreads?
Oh, I can't tell you. You have to find that one out. It might be all 3.
I need that author to come to me.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, and nice meeting you all.
Nice meeting you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Alanita.